7.5 tons at 5 knots, that's a lot of energy. I'm going to tell you something I'm not proud of. In September last year, I crashed Zephyr IV into another man's boat. A pretty little ship, and I did a lot of damage. This video is about exactly what happened and exactly how it could have been avoided. I've been sailing since I was 15. I'm 81 now, and I'd like to think I'm not bad at it. The people who watch this channel seem to agree. The comments are kind, and I'm grateful for that. So it is especially hard to sit here and tell you that I made a mistake. Not a small one. A mistake that damaged my pride and joy, Zephyr IV, and someone else's pride and joy too. I'll be honest with you, the day after it happened, if someone had offered to take Zephyr IV off my hands, I would have walked away. But I didn't, and now I'm ever so glad. Because I learnt something, and hopefully by the end of this video, so will you. It all started with a visit from Richard and Lucy. They've sailed with me several times before. Good crew, good company. They had a week off work in September and turned up in Gosport, hoping for some sailing along the south coast. But the weather had other ideas. By Wednesday, we'd visited every museum and attraction in Portsmouth and Gosport, waiting for conditions to improve. Thursday's forecast looked better, still a bit windy, but manageable, so we planned a trip to Southampton Marina. Thursday dawned sunny with a fresh breeze, so we tucked a reef in the mainsail and headed out of Portsmouth Harbour into the Solent. By the time we got level with Spitbank Fort, we were in 30 knots of wind, gusts approaching 40, and a wild and confused sea. The other two were up for it. Waves over the bow, wind howling in the rigging, good sport. But I knew what was coming. Further along between Cowes and Calshot Spit, the wind funnels through a pinch point. It could be 5, maybe even 10 knots more than what we were already dealing with. So I turned back. Now here's where the first mistake was made. I'd originally intended to return to our berth at Royal Clarence Marina, but inside the harbour it was sheltered, pleasant actually, and I thought, well, Richard and Lucy have come all this way, they've been stuck ashore for 3 days, let's at least give them a bit of a sail. So instead of going back, I unfurled a little of the Genoa and we headed further up the harbour, up the Fareham Channel. With Richard on the helm, Zephyr IV slipped along at around 4 knots, wind varying between 10 and 20 knots, mostly 15, all very pleasant. There were lots of swinging moorings along the channel and it was getting quite tricky to stay within the navigation marks, so I took over the helm. I remember thinking how nicely balanced she was, light on the helm, wind a few degrees forward of the beam, easy sailing. And I was running through my mind where we'd turn around and go back. And then, out of nowhere, we were hit by a vicious squall. It laid Zephyr IV completely flat, overpowered her instantly. I lost all authority on the helm. She rounded up and headed straight for a moored boat. 7.5 tons of boat at 5 knots, bow first, straight into the side of the prettiest little ship you ever did see. You can imagine the horror and confusion as we struggled to get Zephyr IV back under control. Fortunately, the wind eased and the owner of the neighbouring boat came over in his dinghy and helped. We exchanged insurance details and very much chastened, I made my way back to the marina. Once there, we could take stock of the damage to Zephyr IV. The anchor shaft was bent through nearly 30 degrees. The stem head fitting buckled, 3 sheets of stainless steel, deformed and cracked. The pulpit was bent, and the navigation light in a very sorry state. There were some scuffs on the topsides, but they polished out. Zephyr IV is a very tough boat, I'll give her that. I rang the owner of the other boat that evening. A rather tense conversation. All I could do was apologise and assure him I'd do everything I could to make sure his little boat was fully repaired. I felt awful, and as I drifted off to sleep that night, all I could see was Zephyr IV slamming bow first into the side of that little ship. In all honesty, the following day, if someone had offered to take Zephyr IV and all the hassle out of my hands, I think I would have walked away. I'm really quite glad nobody did. So, how could this have been avoided? There are actually 3 things I should have done differently. The first is obvious. The second surprised me, and the third, nobody talks about it at all. Lesson 1. Don't sail for your guests. The most obvious answer is this: I should have gone straight back to the marina and not ventured up the harbour at all. A friend put it perfectly. He said, "Would you have gone out that day if you'd been on your own?" The answer is no. I wouldn't have left the mooring. Richard and Lucy are good people. They applied absolutely no pressure. The decision was entirely mine. I didn't want to disappoint them. My desire to please, that's what drove me to push beyond my normal weather window. If you're a boat owner, please learn from that. Put your boat and your safety first. Your guests will understand. And if they don't, maybe they're not the right guests. Lesson 2. If you do decide to sail in the harbour, don't assume it will be sheltered everywhere. The area where we had our problems is known locally as Windy Corner. Topographical features, the shape of the land, cause turbulence, and the wind gets lumpy and unpredictable, both in strength and direction. So know your local geography. Ask around. These things are rarely marked on charts. Lesson 3. The main sheet. This is one I keep coming back to. The squall that hit us came from a completely different direction to the wind we'd experienced all the way up the harbour. That's the key detail. If it had come from the same direction, Zephyr IV would have luffed, the sails would have flapped, and I could have steered away. Difficult, but manageable. But it came from behind us. She was laid flat and rounded up, but was still far from luffing, completely out of control. Hindsight is a wonderful thing, but if I'd had Richard holding the main sheet, he could have let it fly. Zephyr IV would almost certainly have stayed under control, and we wouldn't have collided with the other boat. One simple thing: one person on the main sheet, ready to ease it in an instant. I won't forget that again. Finally, I'd like to give a proper mention for my insurance company, Haven Knox Johnston. This was the first time in my sailing life I'd ever had to make a marine insurance claim. And they were exemplary, efficient, understanding and fair. Yes, they put my premium up, but I can't say I'm surprised. But I'll be with them for as long as I'm sailing, and I hope I never have to call on them again. It's now May 2026. Zephyr IV is back together, new parts, good as new. The other little ship has been repaired too, and that matters to me. I've been sailing for over 60 years now, and I learned something new the hard way at 81. Maybe that's the point. The sea doesn't care how experienced you are, it only cares about what decisions you have made. Sail safely.